Hello everyone, this is Professor J. Kim. In my previous video, we made a digital video ad for Instagram using Adobe Animate, as you can see here now. Today we're going to make another one, this time using Adobe Photoshop. As you know, Photoshop is known as the image generation and photo manipulation tool. It's very powerful, but also we can make pretty good video file like this. So please don't forget to subscribe my channel, hit the like button, and set the alarm for my latest video. Then let's get started. Okay, so first please download this Photoshop file. I made a link in my description. And the size of this file is, let me check the image size, 1080 pixel by 1350, which is the Instagram video file size. Okay, then before we create the video file, I'm going to convert each layer to the smart object. As a smart object, we have a better options. Hold down the Control key and click on your layer, convert to smart object. You have to do this one by one, layer by layer. You cannot do this all together. It will flatten the layers. So I will do that. Okay, so I converted everything into the smart object. Then now go to Window menu and open Timeline. Timeline. And then let me double click my hand tool so I can view the whole thing. Then create the video timeline. Once you click here, there are two options. Create video timeline or create frame animation. Please choose the create video timeline. Then click on this create video timeline button. Click. See? Then it will create 5-second animation timeline by default setting. So let me scroll down. I'm going to select my mountain far, the video first, and then the layer first, the very bottom layer. And then let me scroll down in my timeline, mountain far layer. Once you click on this drop down menu, scroll down, there are three options: transform, opacity, and the style. Okay, so now I'm going to place this time indicator, the playhead, this blue tab thing, on my 0 second. Then let me click on the stopwatch on transform. It will create the first keyframe, which is the departure. Then let me move my playhead to 1 second mark. You see the time, 1 second. I'm going to insert my second keyframe, which is the destination, by clicking this little diamond. See that? There are two keyframes, departure and destination. Okay. So on my destination, on my second keyframe of this bottom layer, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So go to File, and then go to Edit menu, Free Transform. So I'm going to use the shortcut from now on, Command T. Let me make it, hold down the Option key, make it a little bit bigger, and I'm going to move it up just a little bit, like that, and check. So as you can see, this happens. My background layer is getting bigger. See? Okay, so my first bottom layer is done. My second layer, mountain closed, that is this one. Drop down menu. I'm going to do the same thing. Transform on 0 second mark, and on 1 second mark, insert the second keyframe, and then on my first keyframe, I'm going to make this mountain a little bit larger. Command T. And make it, hold down the Option, a little bit bigger, and I'm going to move down. Maybe not too much. Just there. And check. And see what happens. See? So the very background layer, the mountain far, is getting bigger, and then the mountain close is getting a little bit smaller. Opposite direction. So now I'm done. Now hiker. Drop down menu, transform on 0 second, move your playhead to 1 second mark, insert the second keyframe. Okay, on this second keyframe, I'm going to make this hiker a little bit bigger. Command T, hold down the option, make it bigger, and move him down. Somewhere here. And check. So far, this is what we have. See? Isn't it cool? Like that. Okay. Now next, cloud number 1. I'm going to hide cloud number 2. Just for now. Cloud number 1, so cloud number 1 is on right. What I'm going to do is, let me click on this drop down menu. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to insert this time 2 keyframes on 0 second. I'm sorry, not on 0 second, on 1 second marks. Because my plan is, after 1 second mark, I want to move my cloud away. So I'll click on the first keyframe, you see that? And the opacity keyframe. Then, move your mouse cursor, the playhead now up to 2 second mark. Insert the second keyframe of a transform and the opacity. So on this second keyframe, 2 second mark, select the second keyframe of the transform layer. I'm going to move with using this move tool to the right a little bit, just about this much, and then opacity, the second keyframe. In your layers panel, change the opacity value down to 0. So this will happen. Your clouds from 1 second mark is moving and fading out. See? I'll do the same thing for cloud number 2. Let me make this cloud number 2 visible. On 1 second mark, let me hide the cloud number 1. That's going to be easier. So on cloud number 2 is selected. On 1 second mark, insert transform and opacity. And on 2 second mark, second keyframe on both. Then select the transform, second keyframe on transform layer. I'm going to move it to the left this time, like that. And second keyframe of opacity layer, change the opacity value in layers panel down to 0. So this will happen. Watch. Getting bigger, and from 1 second mark, clouds moving away and fading away. Okay. So far it's good. So now we completed up to 2 second mark. Next is a logo layer. So I want to show the logo after 2 second mark. I don't want to show the logo and the text until 2 second mark. So on logo layer, place your mouse cursor at the very beginning, keep pressing and drag it. See? So we don't see logo until 2 second mark. So from 2 second mark here, drop down menu of your logo layer, transform and opacity. Okay. And then maybe 1 second might be too long, so I just want to use 10 frames second. Like a 210, see? Then insert second keyframe, transform and opacity. Select the second keyframe of a transform layer. I'm going to move up, maybe not too much, just a little bit. And also, I'm sorry, I lied. Select the first keyframe of your logo layer. Then move the the logo to the top. And opacity value, select the first keyframe of opacity layer, change the opacity value down to 0. So it is coming down and fading in. See? Like that. So I'm done. Now, let me scroll this up. We have 4 more letters. hike, H-I-K-E. So what I'm gonna do is I want to show this letter H after logo. So let me select the H layer first, place my mouse cursor at the beginning of this segment, letter H, and drag it by keep pressing your mouse button up to 210. See that? 210 bottom here. Then letter I, I'm gonna move it to 20. Somewhere there, 220. That's 220. Letter K, 3 seconds. Letter E, 310. So this will happen. See? Fading in, dropping down, H-I-K-E. Okay, but the hike, the full letters, it's a kind of a boring, it's like a kind of a typewriter. So I want to give some more dynamic animation. So what I'm going to do is, let me select the letter H, place a playhead at the beginning of letter H, drop down menu. I'm going to insert the first keyframe of a transform and the opacity. Then, on 3-second mark, there, I'm going to insert 2 more keyframes. And let me select first keyframe of a transform. Control T for free transform. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So let me hold down the Option key and place your mouse cursor on the corner anchor point. And like that. About this much. Maybe not too big. And let me hold down the Shift key this time. I'm going to rotate it like a 90 degree. And return. Then also highlight the opacity layer's first keyframe. I'm going to change the opacity value down to 0. So this will happen. Watch. See? Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the letter I. Letter I here. Select the I layer. Let me collapse the H. Open the drop-down menu of a letter I layer. Insert 2 keyframes, transform and opacity. And now 310, 3 second and 10 frame second. Second keyframe, click and click. Select the first keyframe of transform. Command T. I'm going to rotate it. No, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger first. Option and drag it, make it a little bit bigger. And Shift. Once you see that, your mouse cursor kind of bends. And like that. 90 degree angle. And check. And opacity value. Highlight the first keyframe of opacity layer. And change the opacity value down to 0. So this will happen. See? Isn't it cool? Now letter I is done. Letter K. I'll repeat the same step. Letter K. At the beginning. Transform opacity. Now 320. Transform opacity. First keyframe of transform layer. Highlight. Highlight it. Then Command T. Hold down the Option and drag, make it a little bit bigger. Hold down the Shift and rotate it. Check. Highlight the opacity first keyframe and change the opacity value down to 0 in your layers panel. So this happens. So K is done. Now, letter E. Drop down menu. At the beginning, transform opacity. Now 4-second mark. Transform opacity. Then highlight the first keyframe of a transform panel or layer. Command T. Hold down the Option. Place your mouse cursor on the corner. Drag it, make it a little bit bigger, release it. Hold down the Shift key and rotate it. And check. Then highlight the first keyframe of the opacity layer. Change the opacity value down to 0. So let's see what we have so far. Logo hike. Okay, so looks good. Now the very last one, today. So I'm gonna have that, the today word. I'm gonna move it to the starting point up to 4-second mark. So once hike the word is done, then I want to make this today, the word coming in. So drop down menu, transform and opacity, and I'm going to use just a 10 frame second for 10. Transform and opacity, move to the left, and opacity down to 0. So this will happen. Play, clouds away, and the logo and the hike and today. Just like that. Okay. So it looks good. So this is kind of the 5-second animation. Okay. But after that, if you want to make it stay a little longer, then I can just move this. Let's see, so we have a 5-second, maybe 3 more seconds, up to like 8-second mark. Maybe a little more. I'm going to move it to 8-second. See? 8. So I'm going to keep the same timeline. So it's going to be total 8-second animation. Okay, so let me rewind it. Let me play. Hike today. Okay, so it looks good. Now let me save my file first. File, save as. I'm going to save it first as a hiking layout.psd. Looks good. Since I have one already, as 2. Now let's export it as the MP4 file. So first, before we do that, make sure you open Adobe Media Encoder, this one. So this is a vehicle to convert your Photoshop file to MP4 video file. So go to File, Export, Render Video. Then, I'm not going to change the name. Select a folder that's your destination. Yep, I'm going to save it to my folder. And make sure Adobe Media Encoder is selected. And the format, H.264. This is important because this is a file format for the MP4 video, the web streaming videos file format. Then, I'm not going to change anything. It looks okay. And render. I think it is done. Let me check my folder. See? Hiking layout 2. Let me check. Hike today. Okay, I'm going to try again. Play. Hike today. So it looks good. Now I'm going to upload it on my Instagram. Okay, so this is my Instagram account and I posted my video on my Instagram and it works beautifully. So a hike, animation, and it keeps looping. So I like it. So I hope you enjoy this video tutorial and you can use it for your future project. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.